Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in January 2021. So 2020 has been a long year or a short year, depending on how you look at it, and I'm looking forward to starting the new year, and Netflix is really not disappointing. And longtime viewers know I'll tell you when Netflix is having a weak month, but in this video I'm going to tell you about over 35 movies, 9 series, and multiple specials that Netflix is adding in the month of January. If you're new here, welcome, but the way we start these videos is I talk about all the stuff of interest they're adding on January 1st, and then we'll move on through the rest of the month in chronological order. They are dropping a lot of stuff right here on the 1st, including some of my top picks of the month, starting with Catch Me If You Can, just a gem of a Steven Spielberg movie. If you've never seen this, it's absolutely one of the best things Netflix is adding in the month of January. It's the true story of Frank Abagnale, who was basically a con man and worked as an airline pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, despite having no formal education to do any of those things. It's a really fantastic story with some great characters and some great acting, and it's just a great period piece. This movie looks fantastic. Into the Wild is actually directed by Sean Penn, and while it is a little bit slow and a little bit lesser known, it's a fantastic movie. This also a true story about a guy who really just lived off of the grid out in the wild. Emile Hirsch gives a really great performance, maybe the best of his career, and it's really well done. It's just a little slow paced, but if the concept intrigues you, it is a very good movie. One of my favorite movies to recommend on this channel is Mud. It jumps around from platform to platform, but it's coming back to Netflix January 1st. And this is just a great movie starring Matthew McConaughey. It's got kind of a crime thriller element, but it's about these young boys that find this guy living out on this island in the middle of the Mississippi River, and they try to help him, but they're not quite sure if he's a good guy or a bad guy. Really, again, one of the best things that they're adding this month. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs gets added back. The sequel is already on Netflix, so if you've been watching that with the kids, you can watch the original one. And I do think this is a gem of a movie. It's got great comedy elements in it that adults get, but I wouldn't really call it adult humor. It's just really clever and fun. The Departed is one of my all-time favorites. I'm a big Martin Scorsese fan. I think this is one of his best movies. In terms of modern day crime dramas, thrillers type things, it's really hard to beat The Departed. And then we'll talk about some older movies that are absolutely fantastic, that are just better than most of what's going to get added this month, including my absolute favorite movie of all time, Goodfellas. I love everything about this movie. I've done a live stream where I watch and commentate all the way through this one. I think it's just expertly put together. It's got some of the most classic scenes in movie history. Amazing performances all around, but like The Departed, it's just glued together better than most things that you could watch this month on Netflix. For some movies that really have some years on them, Cool Hand Luke is a longtime favorite of mine, an absolute classic that I guarantee you is every bit as entertaining today as back when it came out. If you've never seen Cool Hand Luke, do yourself a favor and watch it in the month of January. It is like movie perfection. Enter the Dragon is, I think, easily Bruce Lee's best movie. Not only is it his best movie, but it's just a really fantastic sort of spy martial arts movie. There's some really great elements. It's got kind of a Bond thing. So if you've never really gotten into Bruce Lee, but you do like vintage Bond movies, Enter the Dragon has that vibe, but it also is really well known because it introduced martial arts to American audiences in a way they had never seen before. So there's a lot of added value there for that. Another groundbreaking movie is Bonnie and Clyde. Not only is this one expertly put together, but it featured some of the most intense violence ever seen on screen at the time. And it does have one scene that is still pretty brutal for modern day audiences, but at the time it was unlike anything that had ever been seen. Sherlock Holmes gets added. It's a personal favorite of mine. While I don't think this movie is fantastic, I really like a lot of the performances, and I like what Guy Ritchie did with the sort of atmosphere of this one. I used to read Sherlock Holmes as a kid, and I like this iteration of it. It's fun and exciting, and I've enjoyed this movie multiple times. And then as far as the things that I think are the top of the heap for January 1st, What's Eating Gilbert Grape gets added, another fantastic top shelf Leonardo DiCaprio performance, plus a great one from Johnny Depp, and just an all around like crowd pleaser, good movie. If you've never seen it, watch it, but if it's been a while, there's a good chance you forgot how good this movie actually is. Now, if the holidays frazzled your nerves, you might enjoy a couple of these new additions. Headspace, Guide to Meditation. I've seen some clips, it looks really interesting. If you're the least bit interested in getting into meditation, this could be a really good watch for you. And then there's a new series called The Minimalist that's about people that are just basically purging everything from their lives. If you've been the least bit interested in minimalism, this looks like it's going to be a must watch. Now, here are some familiar favorites added on January 1st that are mediocre, but some of you probably like them enough to give them another watch, starting with Gothica. This is a Halle Berry horror movie. That was a pretty big hit when it came out. It has not really held up over time, but if it's been a long time since you've seen it or you've never seen it, it is worth a watch on Netflix. 30 Minutes or Less is a funny crime comedy that stars Danny McBride, Jesse Eisenberg, Aziz Ansari. It's very loosely based on the same story they turned into a docuseries on Netflix called Evil Genius, very loosely. But in this movie, a pizza delivery guy is strapped with a bomb and told to go rob a bank. It's funny enough, but again, another one that hasn't really held up for me. Blue Streak is just classic Martin Lawrence if it's been a while since you've seen that. Can't Hardly Wait is a classic teen comedy movie. It's one of the best post-80s teen party movies. It has held up in a 90s sense. If you want that 90s nostalgia, Can't Hardly Wait is great. Julie and Julia gets added, an award-winning movie that I think was good enough for one watch, but if you haven't seen it, check that out. And then I gotta mention Sex and the City, the movie, and Sex and the City 2. Certainly not my cup of tea, but if they're for you, they're gonna be there on the 1st. Now, finally, we will wrap up January 1st with some excellent comedies that they're adding, including The Naked Gun from The Files of Police Squad. Just a classic goofball comedy. Eddie Murphy Raw gets added, one of his better stand-up shows. There's some debate as to whether Delirious or Raw is the best. Watch it, see if it's one of your favorites, especially if it's been a while. There's a good chance you've forgotten a lot of the jokes, because it is a really genius work of stand-up. Striptease is kind of an underappreciated comedy. While it's not fantastic, it is funny to watch Burt Reynolds play this sleazy politician. Robert Patrick has kind of a scumbag role, and then you get Demi Moore. Not only is she smoking hot in it, but this movie is funny. There is a little more to it than just TNA. And then Superbad, I think, is one of the funniest movies to have come out this century. The jokes and the laughs in Superbad are only spread out about 5 seconds apiece. I have watched it again recently, and that statement does hold up. This movie is incredibly funny. If it's been a while since you've seen it, trust me, it's better than you remember. Now, that wraps up all the points of interest for January 1st. And before moving on to the rest of the month, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which will help you unlock more movies with your existing Netflix subscription, CyberGhost VPN. Like all VPNs, they keep your web browsing safe, secure, private, but additionally, they have specialized servers for Netflix and other streaming platforms in multiple countries, meaning you can unlock Netflix in the UK, in America if you're in a different country, Canada, Germany, Australia, and you can access the Netflix library in that country, which has a vastly different selection of movies. And it's not all foreign language movies either. There's plenty of blockbuster, big budget movies that are available in other countries, not available in the US. Likewise, there's plenty of movies available in the US, not available in other countries, and you can access them using this service. Right now, my viewers can pay as low as $2.25 a month. That's way less than the cost of one movie rental to unlock an entire new library. Plus, they have a 45-day money-back guarantee, so if you just don't like using it, you can get your money back, so there's no risk. They have 24/7 customer support, so you can get help setting it up on multiple devices. Speaking of devices, you can use it on up to 7 different devices at the same time, and it's all the different types of devices that you use. So visit the link in the description, see if that deal is still being offered. If you're watching this in the future, you may be paying a little bit more per month, but it's still going to be under $3 to access way more movies. It's a lot of bang for a little bit of buck. I highly recommend it, but let's go ahead and move on with the rest of January. We're going to jump ahead to January 5th, where they add The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This is the David Fincher Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the one with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara. While I do think the original is kind of better because it was the original. This one is very well done. David Fincher is a genius of a director. I felt like it wasn't glued together as well as a lot of his other movies, but still very good, very dark vibe, incredible performances from some very good actors, including some of the ancillary characters in this movie that really kind of steal the show and kill it. If it's been a while since you've seen it, or you love dark, moody crime dramas and you've never seen this one, I cannot recommend it enough. They made another one that was sort of a remake from one of these books that was not very good at all. If that one turns you off to this one, don't let it. This one stands alone on its own and it's very, very good. Also on the 5th, Lupin is a French language movie that is dubbed, and based on the trailer, the dubbing looks like it's quite good, which is kind of what Netflix has been doing lately. This is about a heist at the Louvre. It's very, very interesting looking, but it is kind of about one character. It doesn't look like it's going to be a lot of action or anything like that. Just sort of a clever little heist movie that I will be checking out. And if it's good enough, you can bet it will make one of my other lists right here on the channel. And then, still on the 5th, one of the more interesting picks this month is the history of swear words. This is a new series hosted by Nicolas Cage, and it will take a word like bitch and give you the whole historical context of its use in literature, in pop culture, things like that. While it's not the most important thing that you could learn, it certainly looks very interesting, and I'm especially interested in the fact that Nicolas Cage is hosting this thing. On January 7th, they add Pieces of a Woman. This stars Vanessa Kirby and Shia LaBeouf, and it's about a woman who has a miscarriage, I believe, during a home birth. Very dark, very moody, very dramatic looking, but this is done from the same director who did a really weird movie about dogs called White God. If it's anything like that in terms of style, you can expect this one to be pretty artsy in its delivery, but I would also not expect it to be much of a mood booster. January 8th, they add Cobra Kai Season 3. I personally have not had time to get into this show because I wouldn't have time to recommend as many movies as I do, but I know people go nuts for this. It's one of the hottest things on Netflix. YouTube dropped the ball with their service, but Netflix picked it up, and it is one of the hottest things going right now. If you haven't jumped in yet, you do have a little bit of time to catch up on Season 1 and 2 before they add Season 3 on the 8th. January 10th adds an interesting pick, Spring Breakers. Now, this is one I have talked about before. This is a wild movie for the art movie crowd. I do not consider this one to be much of a crowd pleaser at all. In fact, this is the type of movie that does piss some people off, but if it looks like your cup of tea, and I don't just mean because there's a lot of girls in bikinis in it, if it looks like your cup of tea beyond that, then you may really enjoy this movie. There's a lot of weirdness to it, but it manages to work, and it is kind of a cool flick, but don't expect it to fit any mold or fit any expectations you might have, because it is not going to do that. This is going to look and feel different than anything that you've seen before, so you have been warned. On January 11th, they add The Untouchables. This was a hit movie from France that was in theaters all over the world. They did a remake with Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart that did not turn into as big of a hit. If you've never seen this, it's a heartwarming movie about a man in a wheelchair who is very, very wealthy, and a black man is hired to help him and assist him, and they sort of bond. Kind of a Driving Miss Daisy type thing, but set in modern day and also very different in a lot of ways. On the 13th, they add Night Stalker. This is a new series about the Night Stalker. I don't know too much about it other than the fact that I've been loving all the true crime stuff Netflix has been putting out, almost all of it. This definitely looks like one of the better ones. I'll certainly be watching it. And then on the 15th, we get quite a few, including Hook, which is just a gem of a movie. Again, amazing Spielberg movie that's just got a lot of heart, but also a lot of pop culture stuff that people just still love today. If you've never had a chance to watch this one with your kids, keep in mind it is dark. The Hook elements, he comes and steals the kids, and there's spooky lights and creepy music, and the Hook, is torn up the walls. It's frightening stuff at times, but if your kids are a little bit older and not gonna have nightmares from this, it is just a fantastic watch with your kids, especially if you watch Peter Pan on Disney Plus before it. It could make a fantastic double feature for the family sometime during January. Also on the 15th, they add Outside the Wire, which is a new action sci-fi Netflix original movie starring Anthony Mackie. Looks interesting enough. It does look like kind of a made-for-TV type thing. I'm not going to get too excited about it, but I'll be checking it out, and who knows, we could get surprised by it. If it's not great, you could go back and rewatch Spectral, which is one of the better action sci-fi movies that Netflix has put out.
Dave, your microphone, it's not on.
Click on the button with the picture of the microphone.
Every time a villain calls in, this happens.
Hello?
Hello?
Well, now we can
So
hear
annoying.
you, but we cannot see you.
Every time.
That's like talking to my parents.
Penguins of Madagascar, the movie gets added, which is just very funny. The penguins are the more funny characters from the Madagascar movies. Another great watch with the family. I find a lot of the jokes to be really funny because they got a lot of like, gangster heist movie type references, which is right in my wheelhouse. So I find them to be the funniest of any of the Madagascar stuff by far. While I won't be watching The Magicians Season 5, Mrs. Van Dam is a fan of the show, so I know she's looking forward to the drop of the new season. And then Disenchantment Season 3 gets added. If you haven't gotten into this, it's the creator of The Simpsons, Futurama. While it isn't a hit show and people aren't going crazy for it, it does have a cult following and it is very funny. If you haven't gotten into it yet, there's plenty of time to catch up on parts 1 and 2 before they release the third on the 15th. Now, January 16th brings an interesting movie called A Monster Calls. And in this, Liam Neeson voices this giant Groot-looking monster. But don't be fooled by this one. This is not necessarily a family fun movie. This is actually about a young boy who's using his imagination to cope with the fact that his mother has terminal cancer. There's some very good performances in this one, including the one from the little boy who carries this movie, along with some very fantastic visuals with this giant monster. But keep in mind what it's about. Don't just turn this one on because it looks cool. This is a very sad movie, kind of a heart-wrenching movie, but very well done. If it sounds like it's a topic you might be interested in watching, it's very, very good. I'm just warning people to not watch this one with the wrong expectations because you're going to be shocked by it if you go into it thinking it's about Groot or something like that. On the 18th, they add Homefront, which is another movie with James Franco playing a bad guy, but this stars Jason Statham. While this is sort of like your standard Jason Statham movie, nothing really to write home about. It's probably going to make its way into the Netflix top 10 the week that it releases because it's just one of those crowd pleaser type movies. On the 19th, they add Hello Ninja Season 4. This is one that my young kids really enjoy. They are 2 and 4, and they really enjoy watching this one together. It is about a brother and sister who sort of team up and pretend that they're ninjas to solve problems. They're short, and there are plenty of good lessons in each episode as well. The 22nd adds a few interesting titles, including Blown Away Season 2. This is a show about glass blowers. If you dug Forged in Fire, which I know is a hit show, this is very similar, but instead of blades, they're making glass art. Fate, the Winx Saga, is actually a live-action adaptation of a Nickelodeon show. Not my cup of tea, but fans of the chilling adventures of Sabrina. I think this is going to be tailored for you. I'm not quite sure yet, but that's certainly what it looks like. And then The White Tiger is a movie from India that's sort of a crime thriller that looks very, very interesting. I think this is one of the things that Netflix is more proud of this month. While it is foreign language, it is going to be dubbed, and they are going to try to push it on an American audience. From what I've seen so far, this is probably going to be a huge hit in India, but I think it's going to be really interesting for American audiences as well. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for The White Tiger later this month. January 27th, they add Penguin Bloom, which is an Australian movie that I believe is coming out in theaters in some countries. It's a Netflix original here in the US. This stars Naomi Watts and Andrew Lincoln from The Walking Dead, and it's based on a book about a family that takes in an injured bird that sort of changes their lives. It looks like heavy drama stuff. Again, not quite my cup of tea, but it does look like it's well put together and probably features some pretty incredible dramatic performances. And then we've got my last point of interest added on the 29th, and then I'm going to show you everything leaving in the month of January, so stay tuned. But The Dig appears to be what Netflix is most proud of, or among the things they're most proud of in January 2021. This is a historical drama about a very significant archaeological dig. It stars Rafe Fiennes. It's got a director that's done some other things I've seen. It looks beautiful and certainly very interesting. If the subject matter interests you at all, this is probably going to be a must watch, but there's a good chance this could be kind of a stunner that surprises a lot of people here at the end of the month. But there's plenty more to watch in the month because you do have to watch things that are leaving. You need to watch them before they leave. The date shown on screen right here, that's the date it's leaving. That means you cannot watch it once that date hits the calendar at midnight, so be sure to watch it prior to the date shown. Let's also thank the Patreon supporters who are doing a great job of keeping the show running in 2020. If you like this type of content, you have these people to thank for it. There's a link in the description if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter. There's also a link to channel memberships where you can get access to exclusive videos, but I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this episode, and you will see me on the next one.